Someone else asked the question, if God was trying to reach the world, why doesn't he do some miraculous things like right now so he could grab the attention of people so that they would be saved? I mean, all we've got are the stories of Jesus from long ago that have been collected into the scriptures, and we're not seeing as much in the here and now to rattle people and get them saved. I think it was an insightful question. I'd like to address it in a couple different ways. First, if you go back to the very first century, when Jesus walked on the earth, he hadn't even been gone for a generation when Hebrews was written. And in Hebrews chapter 2 and in Hebrews 3, the writer of Hebrews is answering a question. Actually, the whole book answers in the 13 chapters 10 questions that Messianic Jews of the first century needed to know. And in chapter 2, the question that seems to be behind the text is if God was trying to present himself, why didn't he present himself in something spectacular like an angel? Why didn't he come in some kind of like really incredible way? And I find it ironic that less than a generation after Jesus came and he did miracles and he rose from the dead, already people were saying, why isn't God doing something now? Why isn't God doing something more? You know, Jesus said, even if they come back from the dead, yet they will not believe. He did, and that doesn't make people believe. It's not an intellectual argument that people are really fighting over. The bottom line is that most people aren't surrendering their heart to Jesus because they don't want to be told by God what to do. They want to be Lord of their own heart. It's not so much about the intellectual argument as it is about the will and the issues of the heart. It's interesting to me that in Hebrews 2, one of the arguments that he makes in the latter part of the chapter is that Jesus came not as an angel, but as a Jewish man, that he would be like a high priest for the people. God operated his priesthood through men, through physical flesh and blood men, not through angels, and so he came as a physical flesh and blood man. And in chapter 3, the early verses of chapter 3, the writer of Hebrews is making the argument that why didn't Jesus come as something cool like Moses? I mean, somebody of real stature. Why a stoneworker or builder from Galilee? I mean, why would he do that? And the argument he's saying is that Moses was called a servant, but Jesus was called a son. This is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased. No one had the stature that Jesus had. So it's interesting to me that when you ask the question, why isn't he doing more or something more cool? First of all, it's interesting that even within a generation of when he did, people already discounted what he had done. In other words, he would have to raise people from the dead every other week in order for people to get it. The second thing I need to say is this. God is doing incredible things, and he's supposed to be doing them through his church. When Dr. Luke wrote the Gospel according to Luke, he wrote about the things that Jesus began to do and teach. And in the book of Acts, he wrote about the things Jesus continued to do and teach. It's not the acts of the apostles, it's the acts of the risen Lord and his Spirit through the apostles. God is supposed to be very much alive in his church right now. So we are, in fact, his hands and feet, and we are his body. And so the incredible things that are happening right now are happening by means of believers like you and I. If we walk with God and we bring people to the sweetness of Jesus Christ, we are going to see miraculous things occur. Broken marriages are going to get healed. People who are imprisoned are going to surrender their heart to Jesus, and their character is going to be transformed by the renewing of their mind. There's going to be all kinds of changes. I am in a local church right now where I'm seeing one person after another dramatically changed by what Jesus does. So the world is seeing it. It's just not necessarily on television. And it's because, frankly, the world system is set up to make what I'm experiencing in my Christian walk something of minimal or marginal proportions, even though there's a tsunami of what God is doing. In the East, Asia is being captured. There are whole villages of people surrendering their heart to Jesus Christ. An awful lot is happening on the globe. It's just that they don't get the press. So I think it's an interesting question, but I'd like you to kind of move your eyes over to what Jesus is doing. I think quite a bit is happening even in the room where you're sitting right now.